Having created custom quirky consoles out of cardboard, leather, and resin, what was the next option? It came to us. Why not Lego? The first thing to do was to raid the kids' Lego stash. Sifting through all the pieces helped us come up with an initial design. Our original thoughts were, why not use one solid piece for the front faceplate? But then we thought that was boring. Then it came to us. Why not use multiple small pieces integrated with colour coding to create the faceplate? For simplicity, we decided to keep the original DS Lite rear of the shell. However, we came across a problem. The front faceplate contained a 1mm drop below the rear of the shell. Also, the front shell was not completely flat, so the Lego pieces couldn't be mounted correctly. So with some help, we were able to source a 1mm flat plate to mount the Lego to. This became our starting point on creating the Lego faceplate. The next part of the build was to accurately measure the Nintendo DS Lite faceplate. This was to ensure that the Lego pieces that we were using would look factory when mounted to the faceplate. After hours of planning, we were able to come up with an initial design. Next, we trimmed the aftermarket 3D printed faceplate. We then began to orientate the blocks before gluing them to the faceplate. We started at the bottom of the shell, and just like a jigsaw puzzle, once the foundation was set, we were able to build upwards. It soon became apparent to mount the trigger buttons, directional key, X, Y, and AB buttons, we would have to retain the original shell. So with our finest dremeling skills, we're able to retain parts of the original DS Lite faceplate and incorporate it to the 3D printed faceplate. We also noticed that any section of the shell that required buttons or directional keys would require flat pieces of Lego. This was to ensure that the studs wouldn't interrupt with the keys. After hours of building, the faceplate was starting to take shape. As the top of the original DS Lite shell has an indent where the hinges mount, we had to use 3D printed material to fill in the gaps. After hours of work, a lot of patience, and glue-covered hands, the final product looked amazing. Now all we had to do was to drill out the buttonholes. We soon noticed, after mounting the original buttons, they were set back behind the new faceplate, so we had to come up with a solution. So after numerous attempts, we decided to mount the Lego pieces on top of the original buttons. We also felt that the directional key wasn't the best looking, so we remounted the Lego and created an analog type stick. Being happy with the overall look of the front of the shell, we then focused our attention on the rear of the shell and the electronics. We used a soft touch rear shell from a limited edition DS Lite console. And like all Game Boy Macro mods, we had to install a 330 ohm resistor to disable the top half of the screen. The speaker was also mounted to the rear of the console in replacement of the stylus pen. We decided to retain the original DS Lite and Game Boy Advance cartridge slots. And the firmware was also upgraded so that the console could have screen switching modes. To enable the screen switching mode, we installed a tactile button to the top half of the shell and soldered from points P0 to ground on the PCB. The last part was to reassemble the console and confirm its functionality. We're quite pleased with the overall finish of this build. It's something unique and can appeal to both toy and game lovers. By using genuine Lego parts, you're able to click on aftermarket accessories to the studs on the front of the faceplate. This means that the console is totally customizable and even the direction key can be changed. By updating the firmware, we're able to eliminate the top screen. By adding a tactile button, we're able to switch between top and bottom screen mode. The console is also region-free and capable of playing all your Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, Nintendo and Super Nintendo games. We always encourage our followers to give these mods a try. However, there are a few cons to building this console. It's extremely time consuming, there are a lot of aftermarket accessories required and modification, as well as hardware mods. The build becomes extremely messy with all the glue involved, and the drilling and modification to the Lego blocks do take some patience and time. Saying that, we really enjoyed building this console and we know this is going to go to a great home. We already have plans on building a DMG equivalent of this console, so stay tuned. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.